Hey, greetings everyone. I know it's been a while since we've done an extra cast, but Lightning Dragon and I wanted to talk about our feelings about Fallout 76 after finishing up the beta. Kind of a summary of thoughts, the good, the bad, what you should expect going into it if you actually have purchased the game. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing is that Fallout 76 is not going to be a game for everyone. And frankly, that's okay. You can't make a game for everyone. There's no such thing. But basically, it plays a lot like Fallout 4. It's, in some regards, you could think of it as a cut and paste kind of the mechanics. There's a lot of different subtle changes that occurred to make it a multiplayer game.
So crafting is kind of the same, but different. It's anyone who's played Fallout 4 is going to find it incredibly familiar. I'd say it's deeper, but also lesser. And part of that is there's a lot more things to craft, but if you like make a balanced barrel, like a long barrel for like your hunting rifle, right? And then you find a higher level hunting rifle and you're like, oh, I'm going to take the mod off of this lower one and put it on the higher one. You actually can't do that. So in that regard, it's kind of like, well, that sucks because you kind of, in one way, you're wasting those resources. In 76, you're more incentivized to pick up weapons that are on the ground because unlike Fallout 4, you don't just know inherently what you can mod onto a weapon. So you want to be breaking down weapons or favorite weapons, like if you like hunting rifles, you want to make sure you loot and break them down if you want to be doing your own crafting. You can obviously have one person dedicated to crafting as far as a party goes, because the way you unlock modifications to the weapons is by breaking down some. So if you find a really good legendary weapon, you might want to break down all of the non-legendary versions so you can upgrade that legendary one. Now, one thing that I don't know is in 76 or not. It doesn't seem like it is. In Fallout 4, you were able to upgrade or even downgrade the caliber of weapon or bullet that you fire. So like your hunting rifles, you could have a 50 caliber version or even a 38 version, though I don't know why I'd do that. As well as the combat rifle. That was, I think it's 45 as the standard ammunition, and in Fallout 4 you're able to make it 308. Now, I haven't seen that. I don't think Jarvis has seen that. I haven't seen it in any streams that I've been watching, so that feature might just be gone, which
I think it is
kind of disappointing. Yeah, it's a little disappointing that it's not there, but we could see like legendary ones that have a larger caliber weapon, or maybe there's just more weapons that kind of fill the gaps.
Another thing that's a little bit different as compared to Fallout 4 is the whole survival mechanic. You need to eat, you need to drink, because if your meter gets too low, you start having loss of max hit points, stamina issues, things like that. But it's not just a matter of eating or drinking. It's a matter of what you want to do is have prepared foods, because everything you eat that's raw has a percentage chance of giving you a disease, a parasite, something along those lines. And they have a time limit on them, basically, that counts down, that will have a negative effect. Maybe you'll get, as Lightning Dragon famously did, dysentery, or I got parasites from drinking out of a water fountain. You have to try to carry what you need, and you can eat what's there, but once again, it's a risk.
There was a survival mode in Fallout 4, but it was incredibly punishing, I found, and some of my other friends that play also didn't find it enjoyable. And thankfully, that's much, much less extreme in 76. You don't need to eat as much. You can't sleep like you could in Fallout 4 because it's a multiplayer game, so it's not like you have to, I've been awake for 12 hours and sleep and just sit there and stare at your character in bed. Resting still does give you a percentage bonus to experience earned.
One of the things about resting on a bed is that you want to be selective about where you actually lay down to sleep. If you're on the ground, you have a chance of getting parasites or disease. An actual bed or something up off the actual dirt.
You also get hit points back when you rest,
which is good. Absolutely good, because it's food can be a really, well, you can get hit points back obviously with stim packs and also with food, but as we said, with a survival element, you really don't want to waste food just to get hit points.
So, some closing thoughts, and this is actually one of the larger sections in my notes here. They have talked about adding free updates, mod support, private servers, but that's not going to come out initially because they're still working. This is something brand new for them. So if you like the idea of multiplayer Fallout 4, then it's worth checking out. We had a lot of fun. There are additional vaults in the game that you can find. It could be something that's future DLCs, which are, I believe, going to be free because it's being supported through. It's hard to think of a word for this. There's microtransactions, but it's just cosmetic stuff.
Yeah, microtransactions that are cosmetic are ones that I can actually tolerate. And as you get achievements in the game, you get these atoms that basically can be used to buy things on the store. So continued play gives you points that you can use to buy those things outright. So think of the microtransactions in this as a shortcut. If you don't want to try to do the achievements or unlock it that way, you can just spend the money and then get what you want instantaneously. I'm not exactly sure if those achievements unlock on other characters. I believe you can make multiple characters. And if they do, then that might be a way to actually kind of farm these out if you really, really want to go that route eventually.
Something else that'd be kind of nice to add would be building our own vaults. You had a vault entire DLC for Fallout 4. I had a lot of fun with it. Once you kind of got into the base building and ignoring some of the buggy AI you had to deal with, it was nice. I wanted to make more vaults, like above ground vaults. Instanced housing or a faction-based kind of building or settlement would also be kind of cool. This would, like, if you formed up guilds, like pseudo guilds, because I don't think you can really do that in the game, you could have it where people can come and go that's tied to your personal group or a collection of friends that have access to it. I think that'd be really cool, especially for a large multiplayer thing. Think of like a guild hall in, like, I guess Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars 1, those kind of things.
Well, I could see that being those vaults you're talking about, how you could build up a vault.
Right.
Like there could be an empty one and just basically you go to the door, you click on it, it does the, you see the animation of the door opening, you go into the instanced area, and that's where your guild is.
Another thing I would like to see added would be a major settlement with real NPCs and a bit more backstory. I have not dug too deep into the lore as of yet. Our time spent during the beta was mostly just exploring and combat. From what I've seen in the game, there's very much a reason why there's no other humans aside from the players from Vault 76. I, of course, could be wrong, but if I'm right, I'll just leave that as spoilers. I don't think there's anything stopping Bethesda from adding any sort of large city or settlement as a DLC later. Maybe a mostly interior area, give players more of a central hub for trading, and to prevent griefing, obviously, because that's probably going to be a thing. Some kind of law might need to be enforced here, either removal of weapons so you can't just walk in there fully armed, or maybe just not allow you to draw them because of, like, guards or police or something. Because there's a lot of people that are just going to run in there and be like, ooh, NPCs, let's kill them. Which could be another reason why there's no NPCs in the game.
Now, one of the common complaints I hear from, I've watched a few YouTube videos now about Fallout 76. Oh, there's no story, or there's no, it doesn't have a direct narrative like Fallout 4 or Fallout 3 or whatnot. And I get that. Now, there is this interesting set of audio tapes that I found that has interviews with survivors from immediately after the war. And these are done really, really well. In fact, I'd say all the tapes I've listened to so far are done really well. So what Bethesda is doing here is they're using the world to actually tell the story. That's one of the things that Bethesda does really well. In a sense, if you want to experience any story in Fallout 76, you have to look for it, which is a weird concept, I admit. If you think about the nature of the world, it's 25 years after a nuclear war. There are very little survivors. That anything that's human, for the most part, is, well, mutated and pretty violent and vicious. Still somewhat intelligent, but, they're not someone you're going to interact with very normally, except for that one vendor. It's actually a super mutant who likes to talk about all the meat that he likes to eat and all the different types of meat. The point is that generally speaking, There's not really a human civilization out there that's left behind or established currently in this game. So you're just finding remnants, stories, notes, and all these things, these little pieces of the puzzle. I don't have any problem with that. I would imagine that if this is supposed to be the first vault that opens, that kind of makes sense. But I do get your concerns. If you're the person who really likes that kind of narrative story, that direct narrative that you find in all the other Fallout games, I can get your disconnect. I can get your, apprehension or dislike of the way it's done. I totally can. I'm a big RPG fan, but I have to give them kudos and props for what they presented here as being very interesting. I mean, I spent most of that day on the last day of the beta just listening to lore. It was so interesting. I would find something to read. I would listen to a tape. I was immersed. I loved it. So if you're willing to take the time to look for that stuff and to actually read it and listen to it, there's something there for you. Now, as far as PvP goes, there was something a little bit different. Now, you do have the option, of course, to, blast anyone you see. But the odd thing was, with the exception that one person that was sitting next to the starting zone had a bounty on his head, and I can't say for certain he was attacking players because you had to be over level 5 to be attacked or to engage in PvP. So it was just odd that he was sitting right there next to the starting area, because a lot of people go back to that central hub to craft because most of the stations are there anyway. The thing is that for the most part, players were pretty friendly. You'd run around and there'd be some sort of world event or something going on. You don't have to worry about them just running up and shooting you. That's kind of interesting because, well, let's give you an example here where that's different. In Star Citizen, where I wanted to try the AI missions in the station, there's only one outpost right now that has AI running around. I've yet to be able to do it because of one of two things. Either the AI is not spawned, or I run in and try to engage with the AI and a player shoots me in the back. The constant backstabbing that I've experienced I haven't felt in 76. And I don't think I've been attacked by a single player yet. I've come across groups, I've come across whatever. I mean, and I'm playing in the passive mode, but no one's even just blatantly started shooting at me. It's very interesting. It's like that thought process is not prevalent in the players' minds. And they're more interested in working together.
So, like Jarvis said, I unfortunately had to go and do real life stuff, so I missed out on almost half or more than half of the very last day of the beta. But we were having teaming problems, so we couldn't team up. So I ended up going off and doing my own thing, and I came across a power plant, like a nuclear power plant. I don't really want to do the event, but it's I want a radiation suit. So I'll go in, I'll explore, maybe I'll do the event while I'm here, because I was on a limited time schedule. I ended up staying doing the entire event. It was kind of cool. You were running around the power plant, fixing it so it didn't have a reactor overload or something. It was super, super confusing on the inside, though, so having an internal map might have been nice. I didn't see one. Maybe there is. I just haven't seen it. Though there was signs go here, go here. And I got a purifying water station blueprint out of it, and some other kind of weird things. But the guy I was in there with, they never tried to murder me or anything. I was kind of worried at first, kind of coming up there, because I was being sneaky, because I just sneak in general so I don't get attacked. But we ended up staying and doing the entire mission. They found the final area, even though I couldn't find the main reactor room, so they ended up doing that side of the quest. But I did get a mutation for a few minutes, so that was fun.
Yeah, actually, I have a mutation right now. It's I have a -2 intelligence, but I have a big carry boost, and I can jump double height.
Well, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, the intelligence part sucks, but yeah, I can basically oh look, there's a fire escape up there, like Spider-Man, woo. But yeah, it's Radaway gets rid of that potentially every time you use one. It has a chance of getting rid of a mutation. So overall, and kind of as my final thoughts on this, and maybe it's because I come from, having grown up with Pong, so when I hear complaints about graphics and all that, and And I'm just kind of wave them away because, first of all, it's an MMO environment. You always lose some graphics in an MMO environment for the most part. It's a concession. It's also probably also an engine concession to make the world as big as it is. But I still think it looks good because their lighting and things is really well. But once again, this is coming from the perspective of a guy who grew up with Pong. Now, going back to what I was talking about with Star Wars Galaxies, that's kind of an older MMO, and many of you listening to this may not have ever actually played it. And of course, there's going to be those of you who have, so you'll understand where I'm coming from. Star Wars Galaxies was a sandbox. Most MMOs today are theme parks, and there's a difference. Sandboxes are player-driven. They create most of the content. There are some NPCs, but most of them are there as vendors, and there's really no focused story narrative. Players create the bases, players create the battles, players create the factions in PvP. Player-driven. Theme parks typically have, for example, you have a bunch of NPCs with defined storylines and raid dungeons that you go in with preset parties or maybe a guild. But there's a pattern. Like if you make a character on the same faction, you're probably going to branch into the exact same missions chain and do the exact same things the exact same way every single time at a given point. You may have different starting positions, but it all filters and funnels into the same things. That's a theme park. It tries to tell you a narrative by forcing you down a channel. There's a lot of people out there who are nostalgic for that Star Wars Galaxies sandbox, because while they start off slow, once players get things built up, things can get really crazy. I remember when in Star Wars Galaxies, I had personally ground up one of the first player-owned bases for our guild. Back then it was called Torah. And from this base, we could run missions to kill NPCs, stormtroopers, or whatever the mission was to get more money so we could grind up the next base and so on and so forth. But there it was, the first base on the server. Every Imperial faction from everywhere in the game came to take us down, take out that base. This quiet little valley that we had suddenly became the hotbed of planetary warfare. And we had to have round-the-clock people scouting, watching. We would see, and this is before the vehicles and stuff came in. You had to run everywhere on foot in the early days of Star Wars Galaxies. It took like a half an hour to run back to the main planet, main city in Naboo, where we were stationed. But we would have scouts way out in the distance, and they would report back that if they see a big Imperial force moving in to try to take out the base. So we had all this dynamics moving around, people scouting, people gathering resources, people running missions, try to get the base upgraded. That little base, that little hub, became the center of so much activity. It was amazing. So in some regards, I miss that sandbox experience. And 76 can potentially bring that experience back. So I'm excited for that potential. And I might be wrong. That may never happen.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I don't know if we covered it, but there are faction bases. There's preset settlements, and you can take them over and have PvP wars over them for the resources.
Right. The reason I didn't really bring that up was because, the different servers and different instances, it's a little bit of a different dynamic, being that you may log into a server and there may not be a base there. And you may, and the next time you log in, there is. So it's not the same persistence that you would have found like in Star Wars Galaxies, where everyone was playing on the same server.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that these kind of things develop, but I don't know how the whole kind of different server sharding thing is going to work with all that. We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, so that's kind of our thoughts on Fallout 76, and it's not going to be for everyone. I'm not going to say it is. Now, for someone like me, I enjoy it. I'm a very much a sandbox person as opposed to a theme park when it comes to MMOs, and I find that a lot of RPGs today kind of handhold way more than the classic ones did. A lot of the classic ones, boy, there was a lot of time spent wandering around not knowing what the heck you were doing, because it was just like
Final Fantasy 1.
There you go.
I think was the most sandboxy RPG ever, because you literally, no one gave you a mission, but you walked into the king.
Console-wise.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you walked into the king and he's like, you are the warriors of light. Go defeat the evil. Bye. and you had to talk to all the NPCs to get clues and hints to figure out where you were going, and part of that, I mean, I can understand removing it, because not having a sense of direction can both be good and bad. So, you know, you take a little bit of the good, take a little bit of the bad, and hopefully you come out with something that's overall enjoyable.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm not going to be overly rah-rah in the game. I'm not going to be overly critical. A lot of this is going to depend upon the community, because that's what sandboxes rely on, is the community. But one way or another, all I know is, say, personally speaking, I enjoyed it. All right, everyone. Well, that's about it for this extra cast. I just wanted to thank you for listening. And I know we haven't done one of these in a while, but I felt that this was worth doing on this. And we'll catch you on the Blastcast, which should be our next show. See you in the next one.
And cookies for all of you who made it to the end. Free cookies. We're the dark side.
We have cookies.